Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you've all got a beer. I certainly bought mine. So, I'll give it 5 minutes for everyone to get logged in. But tonight, obviously, I am going to be kind of, I suppose, continuing where I left off when I did this before, and just giving you some more stories from my time as a trader, which started in the summer of 2000 and is still going on to this day. It's been a long time, and a lot of crazy things have happened through the years. Some good, some bad, some lucky, some unlucky. But yeah, I mean, that's what makes a career, isn't it? A lot of different experiences, and obviously as a trader, the important thing is that you learn, as much as you can from those experiences. So you want to learn some ninja stuff. I don't know about ninja stuff. How about trading binary options? Yeah, the quick way to lose a lot of money, I think. So, what time is it? A few minutes past 8. We'll get started in a minute. Balls in one hand, beer in the other. That's right, that's how I like to roll. Oh, before we get started, hold on 1 second. Hi, can you move my stop up on the buns by 20 ticks behind current price, please? Thank you. Sorry, just trading for my watch again. Fucking kids. Kids these days, Jesus Christ. Yeah, the tree's holding up. The tree's holding up good. So, do I dream about the Bund? No, I wouldn't go that far. Not really. Not unless I've taken a particularly bad beating. Then it might creep into my dreams. So one of the things I started off talking about in the last scope on this was relatively early in my career, when I had, a lot of luck gaming the brokers, as it were, and basically trading on price inefficiencies that were caused by data errors and making a lot of money. I think I've already said this before, but for me, I mean, that came a few years down the line. For me, in trading in general, I had a very inauspicious beginning. I showed this the other day, and I don't know if you can see it, but this is my first ever trading statement, and that was my first deposit into an account, £525 with stock trade. I don't even know if they're still around. But this kind of gives you an idea of how difficult it was, because I had £525 in my account, okay, in the summer of 2000. And I bought £476 worth of a share called EasyNet. After being in that trade for 5 days, this is my first ever trade, it went up 5p, so it's up 0.5%. And I thought, you know what, it's not moving anywhere real quickly, I'll cash out. The share's gone up, albeit marginal, and I ended up losing 6% of my account because of the commissions. So the actual trade goes okay, but I'm down 6% on comms. And that was a story of my early career, because I basically got taken to the cleaners, as you can imagine, under those conditions. And it wasn't really until I found spread betting in 2004 that I actually really started to get anywhere. But it's interesting, and the reason I talk about that is because it's kind of funny, I think, when you look back as to why you individually got into the game, and the different reasons that people do get into trading. And the reason I got into trading was essentially I think greed, plain and simple. It comes down to greed. My sister was making a lot of money. She had no idea what she was doing, but she was buying shares in the dot-com boom, 1999, and the market was going up, and she was doubling, trebling, quadrupling her money, and she just keep coming home every day and going, the stock market is amazing. It's just free money. And I thought, fuck me, I've got to have some of that. But as a lot of people are, I was late to the party, and I started investing in, right at the top of the market. So when it's amazing that I even bought a share that actually went up, albeit 5p, because every share I bought afterwards just seemed to collapse straight away, and I could only go long in what was a start of, of a great bear market. But that was kind of why I started, because I was just enamored by how much money she was making and how she was presenting it as being so easy. But it's funny because other people that I've come across in my career have not been so, I guess, excited. They've been a lot more stoic. They've not been so excited by the markets. I remember a guy I used to work with not long after I got profitable, and at the time I was working as a journalist. This was in 2007, and I was now starting to make money. And I worked with this guy called Nick Thorpe, and I said to him he said to me, because he could see me often sort of out tabbing on my computer between, what I was supposed to be writing, whatever article I was writing on, and my trading screen at the same time, which I wasn't supposed to be doing, incidentally, because I was working. And he said to me, what are you doing? And I told him I was trading, and he said, how's it going? And I said I was making money, and it was a long journey, but I finally felt like I was getting there. And I said to him, do you know what? I'll do it for you. I'll happily make you some money. I was really confident in what I was doing. And I said, you know what, I'll make you some money. And he said, all right, cool, but what do I need to do? I haven't got a lot to invest. And at the time, there was this broker called TD Waterhouse, who is still around now. And at the time, they would if you opened an account with them and just registered your name and address, they gave you £150 completely for free. So you didn't need to deposit anything, and you'd get 150. So I thought to myself, well, fuck, that's amazing, free money. So I said to him, look, you don't even need to invest anything. Just open that account, okay? You'll have £150. I'll trade it for you, and we'll see where it goes. So he said, all right, fine. It's not like he's even got to invest anything. It's no risk at all. And after 6 weeks, I've taken that 150 and I've turned it into £2,500 for him. And in one particular trade, I'd actually made £1,000 in basically a lunch hour, which was a bit down to luck, because I just happened to be long the FTSE 100 when there was a surprise interest rate cut from the Bank of England. But yeah, so he's from literally having nothing and no investment, he's gone to 2,500. And when he got to 2,500, he said to me, you know what, this is really good. I can pay off some of my student debt with this. I'm going to take the money and cash out. And I was thinking, really? Like, I'm just on a roll here. And he was like, no, I'm going to take the money and I'm going to run now. And so that was kind of crazy. And I kind of, a part of me expected him to think, well, you know what, maybe when he spent the money, he'll come back and he'll think, I really want to get involved in this. But he was just completely like unperturbed by the whole thing. He was just like, trading's gambling, isn't it? And I guess you've done well, but you could just as easily lose it all. And I was like, no one's losing anything. But, he never, he just took the money and that was that. And it was interesting because I think, there are a lot of people that just, they don't get sold even when they see the money in front of them. And funny enough, going back to my sister, she had eventually ended up losing all this money that she'd made in the dot-com boom, principally because she didn't know how to trade. And in 2009, she came to me and she said, you seem to be doing really well in these markets. Would you be interested in, trading anything for me? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm happy to do it on the side. What do you, how much do you want me to trade? And she said, oh, maybe you could just start with £1,000. Maybe you could trade £1,000 for me. And I was like, well, I was thinking maybe give me a little bit more than that, but okay, fine. I'll trade £1,000 and I'll show you what I can do with it. And she was kind of saying to me, yeah, but you're not going to lose it, are you? And I was like, well, you know, you can't go in thinking like that. I don't intend to lose it, obviously, but, you know, you've got to understand that if you're trading scared, you're not going to make any money. So you've got to kind of write that money off. And she was like, no, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable writing it off. And I was like, listen, you've got to be prepared to, but it will all be good. So she was like, okay, let's do this. So she gives me this £1,000. I put it into an account with CMC and off I go. 1 month later, I've dropped it straight away from 1,000 to 750. And she's keeping a tab because she's getting the emails and she's like, geez, this is not going very well, is it? I was like, don't worry about that. The market's difficult for the last month. That's cool. We'll run that up in record time. And obviously I was very, very confident because I had, by 2009, I got 2 years of trading under my belt. And I know statistically that I'm going to have difficult periods, but I know I'm going to come out the other side. And I was on my game. And you might sound funny saying, well, I've taken an account from 1,000 to 750, I'm on my game. Doesn't sound very on the game. But I was very confident and I knew what I was doing had an edge. I just knew it was a difficult period. So she was like, all right, cool, let's carry on. And I then took that 750 up to just over 10,000 in 8 months. I've actually got all the statements here on my screen, but it was about 8 months. And the funny thing is that we got to 10,000 and I thought, all right, now I was kind of getting excited for her. I thought, you know what, we've made really good progress. Now we've got a decent sum of money to actually trade. And I'm thinking at that point, right now I'm going to make her 50. And she goes to me, you know what, I'm going to cash out. I'm going to take it all out. And I said, you what? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was like, why on earth would you want to cash out now? I've just gone from $1,000 to 10 grand. What do you want to cash out now for? You know what she said? She said, Tom, that's the money that I lost in the dot-com boom in those shares. I lost 10,000 on the markets and you've made it back for me. So I'm basically fucking break even. I mean, seriously, I don't want to be bad to my sister. I love her very much, but that was a shit fucking decision. That was a really bad decision to have cashed out then. I was on a roll. So there you go. The infamous break even. It always finds a way to rear its ugly head. But yeah, she cashed out, so, she was a winner, I guess, but it could have been a lot better. It's funny because when you're trading, obviously you have wins and losses, and I think one of the questions that I get asked the most is, what was your biggest ever loss? What was your biggest ever win? Tell me how much it was in monetary terms and all the rest of it. And it's like, that's the be all and end all of a career. And I think more important than how much you made is the impact it had on you and the lessons you learned. And in the last scope I did on this, I spoke about my biggest ever loss and the most traumatic period I ever went through, which was in copper. And I never answered the question of the biggest and most successful trade I ever had, which I'm going to answer now, which was in wheat. Funnily enough, and it wasn't the biggest amount that I've ever made financially, but it was by far my most successful trade, because it was, quite frankly, an absolutely incredible trade. I happened to get in long the market in 2007, and wheat was having a pullback in a long-term uptrend, and we were actually at the time, from a fundamental perspective, in the midst of a developing food crisis, and wheat went absolutely apeshit to the upside. And it was a funny trade from a lot of different reasons, but I learned so many lessons from this trade. And the way it started out, if you actually want to revisit this trade, if you've got a wheat chart that goes back that far, it was on the 9th of November 2007 that it set up. And I got long. There was a hammer on the daily chart for wheat, and I got long, and I thought, you know what, I'm trading with the trend. It's a decent trend. This could be a position that really goes. So I got long the market, and I should add at this stage that the wheat market with my broker that I was trading with was only open for 4 hours a day. It was open from 3 p.m. UK to 7 p.m. UK. So it's only open for this 4-hour period. And what's more is for that four-hour period, I couldn't really watch it because I was working as a journalist. So I had to do my work. I couldn't concentrate on the market. And then at 5 o'clock when I left work, I would be on the bus home. And I wouldn't get home until about 7:30. When I got home, the market had closed. Obviously, once it's closed, I can't adjust stops or anything like that. So it was quite a tricky trade. But as you're about to find out, that really massively worked for me in my favour because it meant I couldn't fuck the trade up by micromanaging it. So it was a great way to stay with the trend. But anyway, so I bought this wheat and I've just got a standard position, and I don't know how I remember this to this day, but I still do remember it despite the fact it was so many years ago, and my exact risk on the trade was £125. I remember that specifically. And the amount, my first initial amount that I bought was £5 a point. So I got this wheat and it's just another standard trade, and the first day it goes nowhere. And the second day it goes nowhere. So I'm like, okay, it's just in a bit of a sideways range. So at some point, I guess it's going to either go or it's going to stop me out. And on the third day, I'm pretty sure it was the third day, I'm looking at the wheat market with another broker that is open outside of the hours that my broker's open, if that makes sense. And it was quoting the electronic market for wheat rather than the pit hours. And I saw that wheat had moved down and hit my stop. So I think to myself, shit, okay, I've been stopped out. Never mind. And then what happens is I noticed that in that electronic trade, it's moved to my stop, but obviously my broker's not open. And then it just drifts back, and just as the pit is opening, we're trading a couple of ticks above my stop. So I thought to myself, shit, that's lucky because, I should be out of this trade and somehow I'm still in it. So my broker then opens, and obviously it hasn't registered that my stop has been hit because it's happened when the broker's closed, and wheat immediately starts rallying. And at that point, I kind of thought, wow, this is totally a free trade now, because ultimately I should have been stopped out of this trade. And, by the grace of God, I'm still in it. And it rallied for the rest of the day. And to cut what could be a very, very long story short, it started to break out of a trading range. And like I say, if you go back to the 9th of November 2007, you'll see this quite clearly. The hammer where I got in, the days of chop afterwards, and then the fact that it starts to spike out upwards. And I started to add to this trade. And what I would do is every time on a lower time frame chart, it would move up. I would just basically put a limit bid in, because I couldn't pay a lot of attention to the charts. I just put a limit bid in at the breakout level. So if it breaks out of resistance on a 60-minute chart, I'll just put a limit bid in at that resistance to basically trade the retest and add to my position. And before I knew it, I was absolutely up to my nuts long this week. I'd added 7 times with my broker, and the market was just still going in my favour. Now, the reason I was managing to hold this and not get too excited is because most of the time, by the time I looked at whether I'd been filled or not and looked at my P&L, it was too late to do anything about it because the market was actually closed, remember, when I got home from work. But I would just put these orders in for the next day and see what happened. And eventually I bought so much of this fucking wheat, my position had got so big that I'd reached the position limit with that broker. Now, it wasn't a huge position limit. I can't remember what it was, but it was fairly substantial back in the day, considering my account size as well. It was quite substantial. But I bought the position limit. So but I was so sure that I got this market by the balls that rather than just go, well, I can't buy anymore, I'm at position limit, I immediately opened another trading account, funded it, and started buying wheat in there as well. And it got to the point where, you know, thank God I couldn't watch this, because I was really, like, the P&L swings would have been absolutely insane. But it wasn't too hard emotionally to deal with it, because when I would get home in the evening, you'd suddenly, you know, it's like if you're sitting there all day and you're managing a trade, you're watching your P&L swing. And if you're not watching your P&L swings, maybe you've closed your P&L, you're at least watching the chart. So you know roughly, you know how long or short you are, and you know roughly how up or down you're going to be when you're watching the market. But when I got home and I'll just log into my account and look at my P&L, I'm basically just getting, at that point, it hits you all at once. You know, how much am I up? Or, oh God, I was up that much yesterday and now look, it's fallen back. But it's a lot easier to deal with, because you've just got to deal with it in one quick blow, as opposed to it seeping, you know, basically seeping into your consciousness all day long. So, yeah, ultimately, the market just kept going up, and eventually I got a reversal signal on the daily charts, closed all of it, and it was my biggest ever trade. I ended up taking on that trade over 10 grand. Now, like I say, it wasn't my biggest ever trade financially, but when you consider that my initial risk, which I never went over, was £125, and I banked, I can't remember the exact amount, but it was well over 10k. It was really quite substantial. And the interesting thing for me was that making 10 grand was a very big leap for my account at the time, and it allowed me to up my size a lot quicker. A lot of the biggest traders I know, guys I've worked with in prop, a lot of their success in being able to grow able to trade big size has come from a few trades, which has allowed them to grow quickly. And for me, that was definitely one of them. There was also another trade, which was this time in 2008, and this was the most amount that I've ever made. And this was, I mean, I'll never forget this trade as long as I live. It was probably the best trade of all time that I've done, I think. And it was on, if you want to go and look, the 23rd of September 2008. And it was in the dollar Canadian. And I fucking hate dollar Canadian, but there's always a little part of me that likes it because, well, go look at this level. So it's on the 23rd of Sep 2008, dollar Canadian breaks up out of a massive sideways range. It comes back to retest it. And once again, much like the wheat, I was in that trade for about 5 days, if I remember correctly, before it went anywhere. And it's funny because somebody asked me once, do you ever use a time stop? Like, when do you throw in the towel on a trade? If you're in a trade and you get long and after 2 days or 3 days it's gone nowhere, do you get out? And I always go back to these two trades, because if I'd used a time stop, I know it's only 2 trades, but they were my 2 biggest ever trades. And if I'd used a time stop on those, I would not have captured the move. So with this dollar Canadian, I've sat in this for about 5 days, and then it went absolutely apeshit. And I think it did nearly 3,000 pips in more or less a straight line. It's a monster of a move, an absolute monster if you go back and look at it. And that was another trade at which I heavily pyramided. I remember a couple of days after being in that now, there was an inside day, and I bought the break of that on a lower time frame and a retest, and it was pretty incredible. It was pretty incredible. So, you know, for me, these were my biggest trades, but I think in a weird way, a lot of what enabled me to hold those trades was the fact that I wasn't sitting there watching them all day long. The ability to walk away from the screen really helped me. But I remember with that dollar Canadian, I remember one specific time when I was in the trade and I was shitting myself because of my P&L. I mean, it sounds weird to be shitting yourself when you're up money, but I was up so much money, and I don't want to say how much it was because it just sounds crass, but I was up a shitload. I mean, I'm not talking millions, but I was up a shitload of money. And I was really bricking it because I just wasn't used to that kind of P&L. And I remember walking around my block where I lived at the time. And I remember saying, Tom, just get out of this position. Just take your profits and get out, because this is insane money. And the other side of me is going, no, Tom, you're not fucking getting out of the position, because you're going to stick to your rules, and your rules say you're with the trend, it's still going, hold it. And there's this it's literally like an angel on one shoulder and a demon on the other. And the demon's going, fuck the fucking rules, mate. Have you looked at your P&L and seen how much money you're up? What if you give that back? And again, the angel's saying, well, it's all about the trade. You've got to follow the process. Forget about the P&L, because the P&L will always follow if you trade well. Just focus on trading well. I must have walked around this block literally talking to myself for about an hour. If anyone had seen me, I would look like the most mental person in the history of the world, just swearing at myself. But I eventually decided I was just going to hold it. I was just going to trail a stop and hold it. And on the day I actually got taken out, I won't go back and check it now, but the actual day I got taken out was a hugely volatile day, and I probably gave back about 200 pips. On the day I got knocked out itself, it got mental in that little run-up. Like I said, if you go back and look at the chart, you'll see how mental that market got. And I think a lot of these experiences, they taught me so much about risk, and in a way, they made me more conservative. I mean, I've got a lot more conservative nowadays than I was back then. And I suppose maybe then it was because I was so focused on growing, and now I'm still focused on growing, but I'm more focused on holding than I was growing back then. Back in the day, it was all about let's grow this account as much as we can. And now it's about let's just hold on to this money and make a living from this money. And, there was just some experiences that, I had back in the day that they stressed me out so much that they're not experiences that I'd want to go through again. And pyramiding heavily and being heavily long a market and seeing it move up massively. Of course, it sounds exciting, but it was extremely stressful as well. I mean, I sat through some very stressful market moves. I remember being involved in wheat, going back to wheat. There was a time in 2007 when wheat had a 2,700 tick range day. Nearly 3,000 ticks in a range on the day. It was fucking mental. I've never seen anything like it. And it was a market in which you were going to get rich very, very quick, or you were going to completely do your arse in record time. And there was some skill involved and there was some luck involved. 2007 was a very, very good year for growing your account, or for blowing it if you didn't know what you were doing. But yeah, so there are a lot of experiences like that really, they certainly had an effect on me. I remember in the last scope talking about Euro Swissy and talking about how at the beginning of this year it was probably one of the more or most even frightening things that's ever happened to me, being long that. And it was kind of funny because I was thinking about this earlier, this Euro Swissy, because I had a couple of frightening experiences in Euro Swissy, but I actually got a warning signal of how bad things could potentially get in that market, and I didn't adhere to it. And that was a poor moment for me. I don't remember exactly when it was, but I remember I had a webinar. And I remember I was long Euro Swissy, and I don't know, someone in here might actually remember this if they were around at the time in the webinar, because I remember having this webinar, and towards the beginning of the webinar, a few minutes into it, I'm just looking at Twitter, and someone on Twitter, I think it was Chris Vecchio, says, Euro Swissy is gapped down. And it's gapped down 200 pips. And I was long and I thought, oh my God. Because again, I had a very, very tight stop. I mean, I bought the floor with a 10 tick stop. So I bought 120.10 with it. I always had a stop above the floor, but it was at 120.01, 02. So I'm long with the 10 tick stop, and I'm doing the math and I'm thinking, fucking hell, if that's gapped 200 ticks, then I'm going to be down 20R. And, I was really, really worried, and it was an incredibly stressful moment. The funniest thing is no one on the webinar clocked how stressed I was. And I remember pacing around before the webinar, and I'm saying, you know, I'm saying to my girlfriend, I'm fucking dead. I'm absolutely dead. And she was like, it's fine, just calm down. I was like, it's not fucking fine, and I'm not going to calm down because Euro Swiss has just gapped down 200 ticks, and I'm balls deep long. And then it transpires it was a mistake. It was a complete mistake. It hadn't gapped down at all. Bloomberg had got it wrong. And I remember literally thinking, there is a God, because God has literally saved me from this. And I still didn't learn from that mistake. I still bought Euro Swissy and was long in 2015. Could have been really nasty. And you know what? The funniest thing is that I think everyone in this game gets some good luck and everyone in this game gets some bad luck. And I got to be honest, I've fucking tapped my good luck resources. I've really tapped them because, you know, surviving Euro Swissy once, albeit nothing ever happened because it was a mistake, but surviving that once, then going on to be actually long when they abandoned the floor and not getting a single pip slippage. You know, I guess you could really say that I've had my share of luck. So, but that was a very frightening experience. And these, I guess, when I'm looking for stories and thinking back over my career, these are the things that you remember. You don't really remember exactly how much money you made on this trade or how much you lost on that trade. You know, you remember the emotions and you remember what you went through, and that's what really stays with you. How it felt at the time, how bad it felt, or how good it felt. I had a friend in prop, and I won't mention their name because they're still around. They're actually on Twitter, so I don't want to land them in it. But I had a friend in prop, and I have to tell this story because it's a story of a loss, and it's not directly involving me, but I was kind of picking up the pieces from this guy. And he was very bearish, the euro dollar. And I don't know why he was so bearish. It wasn't purely technical because the market was actually in an uptrend and was heading up. This was in, I actually can't remember when this was. I think it was 2009. This was 2009, yeah. And it was the summer of 2009. He's got pretty bearish. And he wants to start selling the euro dollar. And he starts selling it in his own account. And he's selling it and the market's moving against him. And this was like definitely a position trade. So he's fine with it going against him. It moves a point against him and moves a couple of points and he sells a bit more. And he's so confident this is going down. And at some point he goes to the boss at the firm and he says, listen, I want to plunge into the euro dollar because this euro dollar is going to shit itself, and I want to basically go all in. And the guy was like, well, you know, when you say all in, what do you mean all in? And he's like, everything that you're backing me with, I want to put all of it short the euro dollar because I really do think that the euro dollar is going to tank. So they let him. They actually let him. They gave him a line to sell the euro dollar, and they, you know, obviously they clearly explained if you do your arse, then, you know, it's too bad. We'll watch your risk for you, but here's the money. You've come to us with a trade, you know, and it's a well thought out trade. He thought it out. He obviously had a logical reason for wanting to sell. God knows what it was. But kudos to the firm, you know, they've supported that. They haven't gone, that's a shit trade. It's not their business to say that. They've looked at it and gone, okay, fine. You know what? You're a trader. You've come to us with a trading idea. We're going to back you with it. And that, you know, that's what you expect from a firm. That's what you want from them. It's good. But anyway, what they don't know is he's plunging in his own account and he's fucking massively offside. So anyway, he takes the firm's money and he's filtering that into the euro dollar as well. Not all of it in one go, but he's just selling a couple of lots in the futures. It goes up for maybe a whole day. He's 80 ticks offside. He sells another lot. It carries on going up for the next day. He sells another lot until he's got quite a significant line short the euro dollar. And he was always, because he was a position trader, he was a very hands-off trader. So he used to sit at the back of the firm. And I remember at one point, the head of risk came round and said to him, listen, I just wanted to check that euro dollar. Are you sort of, you're quite offside on it? And this guy's just sitting there playing on his Nintendo DS. He's literally just sitting there playing on his Nintendo DS. Fuck knows how much money he's down. He's not even looking. And he just sort of just casually glances up at the risk manager and goes, yeah, it's fine, don't worry. That's going to, I'm just going to hold that. So obviously the risk manager's probably thinking, fucking hell, this guy don't look very serious, But they let him hold it. And this was in 2009. Not N. Fisher. I don't know what date it was, but it was definitely in 2009, and I would say it was coming into late 2009 as well. Probably about August, September. Anyway, eventually the loss got so big that the firm closed him out, and they said, you know what, you can't hold this anymore. It's continued to go against you. You've got to stop out. We're not throwing any more money at it. And they stopped him out of it. But by then, he's balls deep on his own account. And I mean, literally balls deep. And he's got not only all, his own money in it, but he's also tapped into savings, and he's got all his savings in it as well. And he's literally rinsed everything he's got, like all the capital he's possibly got. He's rinsed it on this euro dollar, and it's still moving against him. It's not moving massively, it's doing that fucking drift of death. When the market just grinds, it just grinds a little bit, and every day, it might not be a massive amount, it might be another 30 pips down, another 40 pips down, and it's just that painful grind. And at one point, I remember chatting with him over lunch, and he got a phone call, and it was the broker with a margin call. And he's got all his life savings on this as well, and they're still margin calling him, right? And during this phone call, he goes, "Yeah, don't worry, I'll come up with the money. Just give me an hour." And he turns to me and he says, "Oh, I've got to put more money to hold the position." And I said, "Well, where are you going to get this money from?" And he goes, "Don't worry, I'm going to max out my credit cards now." So I was like, oh my God, like now, not only have you used up savings, but now you're going into debt with this thing. This is going to end badly. This is never going to end well, never going to end well. But I couldn't tell him. He just wouldn't listen. And he said, so at this point he started maxing out his credit cards. And finally, this has been going on for a while, and I'm never going to forget the final part of this story. I'm sitting in my car with him, and I'm dropping him off at his house after work. And he gets another call from, professional trader, and he gets another call from the broker, and the broker says, we're margin calling you again on this trade. And he turns to me and he says, he just looks defeated. He's tapped money from every single resource. And I just think there's some point when I guess he just gave up. It just got too much for him. And he just thought, I've got to throw in the towel. And he turned to me and he said, and this is fucking heartbreaking. He just said, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to have to just close this out and take the loss. And I said to him, well, have you used up all your resources? How bad has the situation got? And he said, I've used up everything I had in my bank account. I've used up all my savings. I've maxed out 3 credit cards. I've only got 1 credit card left. 1 credit card. And I'm not doing it. I'm not fucking doing it anymore. That's it. I'm closing the position. And he said to them, you know what? Close the position. Get me out. I'm not going to meet the margin call. They closed him out the trade. Guess what? It hurts to say it. About 3 days later, it was the top in the euro. If you go and have a look at what happened late in 2009 and for the whole of 2010, you'll see, for at least the first half of 2010, you'll see the euro dollar plunged. I mean, it shit itself. And I just kept going back to that moment in the car, that exact moment when I said, have you got anything left to give? And he said, I've got one credit card, but fuck it, I'm not doing it. And I know it's not the answer, but you kind of think, it's just weird how the market just finds your point. It finds the point when you're going to give in and it just fucking breaks you. Because after everything he threw at it, why did he stop when he had one credit card left? If he'd have funded the account and met the margin call, he probably wouldn't have lost anything. And I know that's not the answer. I know that's very reckless. But I'm just saying, isn't it bizarre how the market just finds the exact point at which you throw in the towel and that's when it turns? After everything he did to hold that position, the point at which he threw it in is the point at which it topped. And it was unbelievable. And all the way down, he just felt fucking physically sick. And it was horrendous. I just remember he said, I'm never going to be able to look at a chart of that euro dollar again. And it was absolutely soul destroying. The good news is, and there is a nice ending to this story, is that this was in 2009. We fast forward to 2015 and the guy is now multi-millionaire. I shit you not. He made a series of very good investments. He paid off his debts. He came back from next to nothing, made some very good investments, not in the markets, and is now multi-millionaire. So, an incredible ending. But I tell you what, watching that, I think with the markets, it's the way that it stops you out that's often the hardest. And I sometimes say this to people in my live room. You know what it's like? You're in a trade. Sometimes I'm in the Bund. And you've got maybe, in the Bund, I have very tight stops, 8 ticks. But sometimes I'm trading FX, I have a 40, 50 tick stop. And it's just when the market grinds towards your stop and you just sometimes think, fucking stop me out already. Like it's just literally going up 3 ticks, pull back a tick. Up 2 ticks, pull back a tick. And it's just sometimes better to just get stopped and just, to move on than it's just to see it grind there. It's just disgusting. So, and I think sometimes, it's, like I say, it's the way that you get stopped that hurts the most. So yeah, the market, as I say, it likes to find the point at which you can't take it anymore. And I guess that seemed pretty reckless from that guy. It certainly was, but it ended well in the end. Once he turned the corner, it wasn't the only reckless thing that I saw in prop, and it wasn't the only reckless thing I've seen other people do in my career. And I think sometimes some of the better stories are at the expense of other people. Sometimes they're a bit more interesting when you view them as a detached observer. I remember a guy I used to sit with who was actually a very, very... He wasn't a great trader, but he was a very, very good... What should I call it? Market caller. He had an uncanny ability to call the market, but no ability to trade it whatsoever. And that was a very bizarre thing to see, because you immediately think when someone's got the skill to call a market and say, right, I think the pound's going to go up today and I think it's going to go up 50 ticks to this level, and when it reaches that level, it's going to reverse and fall 30 ticks. When you hear someone say that and you look at a chart and it's done exactly that, you think, fuck me, what a ledge. That guy's killed it. He must be killing it as a trader. And this is exactly what this guy would do day in, day out. He'd never make any money. Never. So why would he make no money if he was so good at calling it? Because he'd never be doing what he was saying. Never, right? He'd say, oh, the pound's going to go up today. He'd be fucking short the pound. Midway through the day, you'd be like, hold on, didn't you say the pound was going up today? He'd be like, it is going to go up, but I think just at this point, it's just going to quickly turn now to the downside. It's going to get short. And you'd be like, well, hold on, you didn't say any of that earlier. And he's like, yeah, but I think it is now. And you just completely change it. Or what he loved to do is just go balls deep on every single trade. So, he might, for example, get in the move and say, right, bunds are going to go up 100 ticks today. but he'll do such big size on it that it goes up 5 ticks and stalls, and he gets nervous and cashes out. And he takes 5 ticks and then it goes up 100. So he was always doing everything wrong, basically, but just phenomenal at calling the market. And a lot of the guys there used to just, like, you know, as soon as he spoke, even the pro traders, as soon as he spoke, they'd be like, what did you say? Because they want to know what he said, because he's so good at calling it. They know he's going to fuck it up. But yeah, he was a bit of a maverick. I remember at one point he was stopped out for the day, and he did something which you just, you know, is inexcusable in prop. It's inexcusable in any firm. But no one faded him. You wouldn't want to fade him. You know, he was very good at calling it, but you know, you wouldn't want to fade his calls. Maybe you should fade actually what he actually did though. But anyway, yeah. So one time he stopped out for the day, and the risk managers come over and said, right, you know, you need to stop trading now. And he said, yeah, okay, fine. I'm just going to sit and watch though for the rest of the day. And then gets to about 4:30, risk manager goes home, and I look over and he's in a trade. And I'm like, don't think you're supposed to be in any trades. Weren't you told to stop out for the day? And he's like, yeah, but I'm just going to take one more. And I was like, no, seriously, I'm sure that is not a good idea when the fucking risk manager has told you don't trade, and you're still new at the firm. I'm kind of thinking you really should not be in that fucking trade. And he was like, yeah, but I think this trade's going to work, and if this trade works, I'll make the money back. And then the risk manager, when he comes in the morning, will get a pleasant surprise when I tell him that I actually made the money back for him. And I was like, actually, I don't think it works like that. I think even if you make the money back, the risk manager's going to be fucked off that you broke the fucking rules, and you're probably going to get canned, mate. He was like, no, trust me, it's all fine. Anyway, that trade became a loser. Then, you know, you can guess where the story's going here. He then started taking more trades to try and get back to where he was when he should have stopped out. Awful. Absolutely awful. He ended up losing probably treble what he was supposed to have lost. And he didn't last very long at the firm. They put him back on the next morning. They put him back on sim, and he never came off the sim again. They didn't fire him. They never actually fired anyone, I don't think. The whole time I was there, or very few people that I saw actually got fired. But you'd kind of get what they call put on sim indefinitely, which sort of means you're on sim and you're not earning anything on sim, so you just sort of think, fuck it, I better go. And they put him on sim and just didn't take him off. And I think that was their way of saying, don't fuck with us, basically, because that's a cardinal sin. As a trader, risk manager first and foremost, you can't fuck about. When you're stopped out for the day, you're stopped out, basically. So sim is just simulator. But it was funny, some of the experiences I had there, you know, shocked me, and they shocked me because coming in as a new trader, I had a very by the book way of doing things. And one of the sort of the by the book ways that I'd learned to do things was never average a loser. That was like my number one rule. Always have a stop and never average a loser. And then when I got into prop, I was like, you know, nobody here is fucking using stops, and everybody's averaging everything. And it was just very, very surprising to me. But I got a sort of the way I found that out was one evening. I was one of the last people in the firm. It was quite late at night, probably about 6 o'clock in the evening. And I had a position in the yen futures. Don't ask me how I remember it was the yen futures, but it was. And I'm in the yen and I'm offside. And the only guy that's left is this old guy, and he's probably, 60? He's probably about 60. And he's been trading for about 20 years or more. And he was like overseeing the risk. And, you know, great trader, been there a long time, carved out a career for himself. And I'm in this yen and I'm fairly new. And I don't know how much I was offside, but not a lot. I was probably about 15 pips offside. And he saunters over to me and he sort of stands behind me for a minute and doesn't say anything. And I'm like, okay. And then he says, oh, you're in the yen. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you're offside. And I was like, yeah, you know, waiting for what he's going to say on this trade, thinking he's probably going to say, like, you know, where's your stop or something. And he goes, you're going to buy some more? And I thought it was a test. I thought he was testing me to find out if I was a cunt or not. So I went, yeah, I'm going to really buy some more. And he's like, oh, so where are you going to buy it then? And I'm like, no, I'm not buying any more. Obviously, I've already bought some. I'm offside. I'm definitely not going to buy any more. That would be a really dumb thing to do. Honestly, I look around him. He looks at me like I am literally the world's biggest cunt. And he just goes and just walks off. And I was like, what have I said? What have I done wrong? And the next day I was saying this, saying this to one of the guys, and they were like, these guys, they always average their way out of a trade. They work an area. If it goes against them, they buy some more so they can get out without taking a loser. He's like, that's why he looked at you like you're a turd, because you're just sitting there offside. Why wouldn't you have bought some more? And this is a pro trader saying this to me, and I'm like, what the fuck? Have I just landed on Mars or something? Like, why have I got all these pro traders telling me to do everything that I've learned is the wrong thing to do? And it was like, it was a very bizarre experience. And sometimes some of the guys, there that are at Futex now joke because I can never get through a webinar without mentioning Nav, because he was a very influential figure on everybody that worked in prop. But I remember a time even with Nav, and he was worth, well, in the end, $40 million before he got arrested, and he was a huge trader. My only real proper interaction with him was absolutely bizarre. He was the firm's greatest trader in terms of, just P&L, in terms of sheer balls, and everybody's just got this sort of, massive respect for him, and everyone's in awe of him. And I remember one night, again, pretty late, it must have been about 7 or 8 o'clock, I'm in a position, and there are actually a few of us in the firm at that point, because it was in 2008 during the financial crisis, and a lot of people were trading the S&P futures late. And he sort of sauntered over, and he was talking to the guy next to me, not to me, and he was talking about his trading day. And after a few minutes, he looked over at my screen, and once again, I was in a trade, and I can't remember whether I was up or down. I think I was marginally up, but he was looking at this trade, and I think I was 5 lots long, but the exact size doesn't matter. I was about 5 long, I think, and he said to me, what are you in? And I told him, and he said, why do you like that trade? And I told him, I thought, this is cool. He's actually talking to me. He's taking interest in what I'm doing. This guy's slinging fucking 1,500 lots in the SPOO, complete ledge, and I've got a chance to talk to him here. And he says, do you really like that trade? Like, how good is that trade? Do you really like it? And I said, yeah, man, this is going to fucking work. Like, I'm sort of, his confidence is rubbing off on me. And I go, yeah, I really fucking like it. This is a really great trade. And he leans over my shoulder and puts me full clip in the market. He's literally clipped me full size into the trade. And he goes, if you like it, you've got to trade a size like you like it. And just looks at me. Looks at the other guy, smiles, and walks off. And I literally have gone to jelly, because I've literally just shit myself immediately, because I'm thinking, what the fuck? Like, I've gone completely balls deep here, and I can't really blame him. Well, I can blame him, because he fucking leant over my shoulder and did it. But ultimately, like, this is my account. I'm going to take the rap for this. And it was a very, very frightening, very, very frightening experience. And afterwards, a part of me was thinking, what a ledge, but also a part of me was thinking, what a cunt, that he would dare do that. But again, it was another sort of a lesson, not to be reckless, but to have conviction in a trade, to go for it, to seize the opportunity when you really believe in a trade. And I suppose it's easy to misconstrue that, I'm not saying that you should see a trade that you like and just because it's a great setup, do fucking 50% of your account on it. But to me, it just sort of taught me to push when you believe, and not to be a pussy, basically. So it was it was an invaluable lesson from that perspective. But yeah, he did average trades. Yeah, he was the king of averaging. He used to clip 69 lots. And if you think about it, building a position of 1,500 contracts when you're clipping 69, how many times can you average a trade? The answer is a lot. I would go so far as to say virtually every pro trader I worked with did not use stops and averaged. People will say that's reckless, that's dangerous, that's mental, you'll blow your account. Hey, shit, I'm with you. I agree with you. I'm just telling you the facts. That's what they did. That's what they did. I never saw Nav stop out of anything. I never saw him not average anything, and I sat next to him for quite a while. Just the way it goes. A lot of the guys, to be fair, didn't use stops because they just didn't. They'd have mental stops. It's not to say they would never get out. They just didn't like to put stops into the actual market. But I remember one FTSE trader. I said, who was very good, and I said to him, "Why do you not put stops in?" And he said, because the FTSE is so thin, and if I'm trading, if I'm scalping, and I've got maybe a 10 tick pain threshold, the market could easily spike there, and then come straight back. So I don't want to have my stop triggered. So I'll just, I won't keep a stop in. But he never fucking seemed to stop out either. I mean, he would average all the time. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. But for all the lessons I learned, that certainly didn't rub off on me. I mean, to this day, I've always used a stop, and I do work an area. Like sometimes when I'm trading bunds, I might work a zone. So it might be a 10 tick zone, and price might go a couple of ticks against me, and I might sell some more, and it goes 2 ticks more past my entry, and I sell a bit more. But I will, I'll then put a stop in, so I'll work an area, but I'm not like going 20 ticks offside, fucking, martingale my way out of a position or anything like that. So yeah, maybe that's why I'm still here, I had some, going back to being still here, I had some really crazy experiences, and as I say, with the Euro Swissy, a couple of experiences when I might not have still been here. I also had an experience very early in my career. I can't remember the date of this now, but I would imagine it would have been around 2010, when I was about 3 years in to my career. And it was right after I opened my live room, ironically. And a lot of people had read about me on Trade to Win, and I won some awards there in 2009 for writing, and I had this live room going in which I was showing my trades. And one of the first trades I did was in corn. I was trading the ags at the time. And I was obviously in my live room, I show everything I do. So my live trades, the entry, the stop, the target, how I manage them and all the rest of it. And I got into this corn, and there was a crop report due out the next day. So I said to the guys, you know what, I'm only going to do half size here. And what's more, I got short, and the market had headed down to my first target, and I'd taken half off. I used to scale out more than I do now. So I was in a half size position to start with, and I'd taken half off. So I've only got half left. So it's a relatively small position. And I thought, you know what, I'll hold it through a crop report. Fucking idiot. Fucking idiot. I mean, I'll never do that again. Mind you, I'll probably never trade ags again, having said that. But I held it through this corn report. Next day, I'm limit up. The next day, the market's gone limit up. And obviously, for those that don't know, when the market's limit against you, you can't get out of the trade. So I'm short corn, and it's gone limit up. And everyone in my live room's like, good trade, Tom. And I'm like, don't worry about that, it's fine. Everyone has a loser from time to time. It'll be fine tomorrow. Next day comes, next day it's limit up again. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not fucking good. And it's only a small position, but if it keeps going fucking limit up every day, it's not gonna be too long before I've completely done my arse. So, day 3 comes along, and on day 3, it goes limit up again. And I was just like, shit. And at that point, it was on that day 3 where I started to think, you know what? I remember a time reading in Market Wizards, I think, when fucking one of the ags went limit up or limit down like 13 days in a row. And I'm properly shitting myself now, thinking, you know what? I could really badly do my arse here. And as luck would have it, it came off limit up and it started to pull back quite sharply. And because it had gone up, you know, limit up 3 days in a row, it was now coming off limit up and starting to pull back. I thought, you know what, I'll just take my opportunity and just get out of this trade, you know, as quick as I can. And I got out of the trade, and obviously, I lost more than I intended to. It wasn't calamitous, but even then, it was kind of funny because as soon as I got out, it absolutely dumped. It absolutely did one to the downside. So, you know, I would imagine that there were a lot of people probably like me that got completely burnt. And the minute it came off that limit up after 3 days, you know, everybody sold and it just fucking shit. Everybody bought back, sorry, you know, their shorts. And, you know, it just absolutely shit itself. So it's pretty nuts. But yeah, so I think, you know, in a way, all these experiences have taught me things. I've learned a little something from all of them. And I'm still here, thankfully. So that is probably everything that I could remember, including the last scope I did, on the major things, the major sort of occurrences that I've had over the years. What chart package do I use? I use Market Delta. And I use, what you can see up there in the top screen is MetaTrader. But the bottom screen is Market Delta. What is your best #1 tip? Don't become a trader. Do you ever go no stops now? No. I always use a stop. No, I mean, jokes aside, I don't know. I don't think it's easy to boil it down to a #1 tip. There are so many things that are important in this game, and many things you can't have without, you know, you need, I guess what I'm saying is you need a number of things, and you might have something right, but if you haven't got another piece in the puzzle, it's not going to get you anywhere. Like, for example, you might have great risk management skills, but poor patience. Right? Now, if you've got, you know, a lot of people say to me, oh, I take losses really quickly and I only risk 0.5% of my account. And you go, oh, well done, you've got great risk management. And they go, yeah, but I take 10 trades a day and I'm just so impatient, I take a load of shit trades. And you think, well, okay, so you're just bleeding slowly. That's all it is. And I don't know that I could boil it down to one specific one. Sorry, my phone just rang in the middle of that scope. So I don't know if it's messed it up. Could I speak about tax and spread betting? There's not a lot to speak about, really. I mean, tax on your account when you're spread betting. You do coke, bro? No. I've never done coke in my entire life. Do I look like I need to do coke? What do I think about euro dollar? I don't have a lot of thoughts. To be honest with you, I haven't really looked at the markets for the last few days because I'm just not going to be trading now until January the 4th. Do I suck cock? No, do you? How did I become so brilliant? I don't know, just me. Anyway, ledges, I think I'm going to leave it there for tonight. I will be back after Christmas, January the 4th. I will be doing a few scopes tomorrow because I've been asked quite a few questions that I wanted to answer specifically on a scope. But I will be back January the 4th properly, and we'll get back on it from them. Sounds like it's pouring down outside. Cheers, guys.